Hello again and welcome to another Mordy and Glory Old World video. Today's episode shall be a quick tip tactica where we look at a crunchy combo or a neat little tactic that you can plug and play into your army. And this time we are going to be breaking new ground because I'm not looking at an Empire unit. I know, shock horror, but we're moving away from the land of Sigmar and we are looking into the mounted holds of the Dwarves. And so without further ado, let's not mess around any further. Let me share with you my favorite Dwarf King loadout, what I like to call the Blender Lord. Let us begin with a brief overview of what you get with a Dwarf King. You have the normal movement of 3 inches, a very impressive weapon skill of 7. Now, some factions out there will be listening to this and going, weapon skill 7 is the normal, right, for your big bad character. Ha ha ha, not in the Empire. So when I come over to Dwarves and I see weapon skill 7, I have to admit I do get an uncomfortable feeling in my trousers. You also have ballistic skill of 4. We're not going to be using that. Strength 4, toughness 5, nice. 3 wounds, initiative 4, attacks 4, leadership 10, and you cost 125 points. As standard, your Dwarf Lord comes with hand weapon and full plate armor, and he can take a great weapon for 4 points, a crossbow for 6 points, a handgun for 6 points, a pistol for 5 points, or a shield for 2 points. We're not going to take anything there except we are going to have ourselves a cheeky great weapon. A, because it's a little bit cheaper than a lot of the ranged weapons, and B, because it makes him a whopping strength 6. You can also give your Dwarf Lord either an Oath Stone, which means that challenges issued by a character with an Oath Stone cannot be refused. In addition, a character with an Oath Stone and any unit they have joined automatically passes any panic test they are required to make, but cannot choose to flee as a charge reaction. Not that we would ever flee because we are stout Dwarf warriors. So the Oath Stone is pretty cool at 15 points. But what I like is the shield bearers. Oh, baby. Shield bearers are my jam. Now, they are going to cost 60 points. It's pricey. But shield bearers, they're essentially, because dwarves don't get cavalry mounts, this is what you mount your dwarf on. You get an additional 3 wounds on your Dwarf Lord. And you get an additional 3 attacks at weapon skill 5, strength 4, and initiative 2. Now, normally you can't have an infantry character mounted on more infantry. I mean, Slanesh would probably approve of that, but unfortunately it can't be done in the normal rules mechanics. But the shield bearers do come with a bunch of special rules. They have Born Aloft. A model with shield bearers consists of not 1 but 4 models, the character and 3 loyal retainers, occupying a single base and acting together as a single entity. To represent this, a model with shield bearers has a split profile and follows the split profile cavalry rule. In all other respects, this model is heavy infantry. So you're not cavalry, you are infantry. Born Aloft doesn't give you any like command range bonuses or anything like that. It just means that you can actually have multiple infantry things on one base. Now, shield bearers only have hand weapons, but they do have the Gromreal weapons special rule, which means that they do get to reroll 1s to hit with them. Speaking of special rules, going back over to the Dwarf Lord, he has got a whole bunch as well. He's got Ancestral Grudge. A model with special rule has Hatred Enemy Character special rule, meaning it hates all characters of the opposing army. If this character joins a unit of Longbeards or Hammerers, that unit also gains special rule. Should this character leave a unit of Longbeards or Hammerers they have joined for any reason, that unit loses special rule. So basically they have hatred characters and they give it to Longbeards and Hammerers. Speaking of hatred, they also have hatred orcs and goblins, but so does everything in the army. They've got Dwarf Crafted, which is good for if you're standing and shooting with a crossbow or handgun, but we're not. Gromreal Armor means that you get to reroll 1s to your armor save. Gromreal Weapons means that if you've only got a hand weapon, you don't get it if you've got a great weapon, you can reroll 1s. And your magic resistance 1, Rallying Cry, Resolute, and Stubborn. Now that covers all of the different options that you can get for your Dwarf Lord, and we've also tipped our hat a little bit in the direction we're going to be going in. But let's get into the details now, specifically of how to build the Blender Lord. You're going to take a king and you're going to put him on shield bearers and you're going to give him a great weapon. You're then going to go over to the weapon, armor, and talismanic runes, because a dwarf king can take up to 125 points of these things. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with dwarves, runes are their magic items. They don't get access to common magical items and they don't get specific magical items. What I mean by this is, in the dwarf book, you won't find a rune fang. You won't find the dragon slaying sword or anything like that, which is a specific weapon with a specific effect. Rather, dwarves get a number of runes, and each one of these runes can be applied to any weapon or any piece of armor. So, I mean, a weapon rune has to go on a weapon, an armor rune has to go on an armor thing, but there's nothing saying that you can't put the master rune of smiting, which is like the best weapon rune that you can get, it's the most expensive one, just put that on a hand weapon or put that on a great weapon. Essentially, you pick the normal mundane weapon that you want to take, and then you start slapping runes onto it to make it magical and make it better. Now, there are a whole bunch of special rules governing how you can use runes. You can't just take the best one and spam it over and over and over again. This is done to essentially try and rein them in a little bit, because the game designers have noticed that if you give people access to this level of flexibility, it could easily become broken. There are essentially two ones that really underpin the whole thing. There's 5 in total, but the 2 main ones you want to be aware of are the rule of 3, so you can't ever have more than 3 runes on one item, and you can't ever have identical rune loadouts. So you couldn't, for example, take 3 runes of dragon slaying on a king and then take another king with also 3 runes of dragon slaying. What you could do is take 1 king with 3 runes of dragon slaying and then a second king with just 2 runes of dragon slaying, for example, and that way they are 2 different unique weapons. By the way, I know you wouldn't spam runes of dragon slaying. It's just an example to give you an idea of how it works. Now, what we will spam though, and how we create the Blender Lord, is the rune of fury. Now, a lot of people online don't like the rune of fury, and I do not understand why, because the rune of fury is very simple. It's 25 points and you get an extra attack. Anything that gives you extra attacks in Old World is supremely valuable, because pretty much everyone in the game has like 1 attack. And so anything that gives you extra attacks is amazing. And so being able to take the Rune of Fury on your Dwarf Lord gives your Dwarf Lord an extra attack. But here's the thing. The Rune of Fury is a very common rune. It has the rule of duplication. Only runes marked with an asterisk can be duplicated on the same item, combined together and increasing their effect. Now, essentially, it's like it being an extremely common magical item. So the Rune of Fury has the asterisk. It has the rune of duplication, which means that you can take 3 of them on 1 Dwarf Lord. And you know what? That is exactly what we are going to do. That is going to give our Dwarf Lord an eye-watering 7 great weapon attacks at weapon skill 7, strength 6, AP -2. And then on top of that, we have the 3 attacks from the shield bearers, giving us a unit which has 10 attacks from a single model. Now, if you're coming at this from a 40k perspective, you're probably scoffing at that, thinking it's not really very many attacks. But in Old World, that's a big deal. Most models in the game, most infantry models, have only got 1 attack. Sure, that's like your baseline infantry, but that actually does go all the way up to some elite stuff as well. And, you know, only the best, like Chaos Chosen, are going to have 2 attacks each. And when you start comparing it to other characters as well, like, I know Empire characters aren't exactly the most damage outputting, but an Empire General only gets 3 attacks base. Getting 10 attacks on 1 guy starts putting your Dwarf Lord in the same blender capabilities as some Chaos champions, and those guys are meant to be the best at close quarters combat. However, there is of course one disadvantage of this loadout, which is The Blender Lord is a great weapon, so he will be striking at initiative 1. There are a couple of ways that you can counter this. You essentially need to accept that if your Blender Lord gets into a challenge, he's going to probably need to have some extra durability, some way that he can take a blow before he then gets to dish out the pain. Fortunately, we've only spent 75 of our potential 125 points that we can spend on runes. Now, what I like to do is take the Rune of Preservation. This is 25 points, it's an armor rune, and it makes you immune to Killing Blow and multiple wounds special rules. If the wearer suffers an unsafe wound from an attack, with either of these special rules, they only lose a single wound instead. Being immune to Killing Blow is a big deal when you have Bretonnian lords on Pegasus flying around, annihilating anything with multiple wounds, and also essentially not being able to take multiple wounds, like just they have to chip through each one of your 6 wounds. Bearing in mind, like I said, volume of attacks isn't really a thing in Old World. In a lot, not all the time, but in a lot of cases, it can be quite difficult to achieve. It means that getting through all 6 of that Dwarf Lord's wounds, when he's got 6 of them and he's on toughness 5 and a 4-up armor save base, it's actually pretty good. Of course, that still leaves you with 25 points left over, and there are a number of other ways that you could make your Dwarf Lord more survivable. You could go for a Master Rune of Swiftness. The wielder of a weapon inscribed with the Master Rune of Swiftness gains the Strike First special rule. This would counteract your Strike Last from the great weapon, and means that you would strike at your initiative of 4. You could combine this with something like one of the battle standard runes if you are taking a BSB in the same unit. So you could have the Rune of Confusion, which is 35 points, which means an enemy that charges the front arc of a unit carrying a standard inscribed with the Rune of Confusion makes a disordered charge. So suddenly you're striking initiative 4 and the enemy is striking at their base initiative, which very well could mean that you're striking at the same time, unless you're getting into those freakishly fast things like elves. Only thing I hate for more than strike versus elves. But the only people that are going to strike before you are probably going to be those really fast ones. And most other characters you can happily get into a fight and smash them. What I like to do though is combine. I just take the Rune of Preservation, and what I like to do is combine it with the Master Rune of Grugni, which is the standard rune. Now, it's a very expensive battle standard here, and so you very well may not want to spend this. It's 80 points, but I take my Dwarf Lord, my Blender Lord, put him in a unit of Longbeards or Hammerers with a Thane BSB. It makes quite an expensive unit, but with the Master Rune of Grugni, but it does mean that I am able to have my Dwarf Lord add all of my dwarves in that unit with a 5-up ward save, which is very, 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 very nice. So what you end up having, and there's probably much ways of getting to that 5-up form, but I always like to have my characters with a 4-up save and a 5-up ward save, because I feel, especially when you've got 6 wounds of Dwarf Lord, it makes him eminently durable, because you remember he generally only needs to survive the first punch that someone throws at him, and then he absolutely butchers anything that's in his way. And when I say he butchers it, I am not exaggerating. I have used this particular loadout at a tournament, and I took it into Beasts of Chaos, I took it into Orcs and Goblins, and I took it into in my final game I played Warriors of Chaos. Now in that first game that I played, my Blender Lord went into a unit of fully raged up Gors supported by a War Gore, the whole 9 yards, and I slaughtered them to a man. Just cut them all down, no drama whatsoever. As someone who plays on Event, I know I've mentioned that a few times in the video, I've never had a character who can do that. Single-handedly, this Dwarf Lord was cutting down a rank and a half of Gors just each time that he swung. He won his challenge, just everything. Like, nothing could stand in the way of the Blender Lord. Nothing that wasn't essentially another Lord level character. In my second game against Orcs and Goblins, to be fair, I didn't really get to show off his prowess, because essentially he charged a unit of goblins and butchered them all, and they fled off the table. But it's goblins, so you know that's probably what's going to happen. But in my last game, this is where things really, this is where the Dwarf Lord really got to show off his capabilities. And this is where I think it's the main selling point, the main example that I want to give. Firstly, he got into a one-on-one challenge with a demon prince. Mano a mano. I issued the challenge. The demon prince did 1 wound to me. Couldn't do anything else. And it was a demon prince of Khorne. And it just gone angry with the gaze of the gods. I'm weapon skill 7. And that thing's weapon skill 7. So hitting on 4s. And then it's like strength 5 or strength 6 or something. So it's only wounded me on 3s. So yeah, I just happily just got lucky on lucky a couple of armor saves and a couple of ward saves. I took 1 wound. And in return, my Dwarf Lord chopped that demon into tiny little pieces. I overkilled it massively. Second combat I got into, bunch of Chaos Warriors. Chaos Warriors of Khorne. Nothing. I've never ever wanted to charge those before. I've tried charging them with Empire before. Everyone died in my own turn. But my Dwarf King was happy to go in there, and between the Dwarf King blending and the few remaining survivors being cut down by the Longbeards that he was with, cut down every single one of those Chaos Warriors, overran into some Marauders with flails, and, well, the Chaos Warriors of Khorne couldn't hold. The Chaos Marauders of Tzeentch weren't going to. Dwarf Lord just cuts them down, and it wasn't pretty. Obviously, I had to do that in the next turn, but you get the point here. I've taken on multiple line infantry. I've taken on toughness 3. I've taken on toughness 4. I've taken on elite infantry, warriors of chaos with Khorne, cut them down. I've taken on a big scary demon, and I've killed that as well. If this loadout has one limitation, it's that against potentially the biggest and baddest, that's maybe where he comes up short. Because if he encounters the dragon, he's going to start wounding it on 4s. That could go either way with his 7 great weapon attacks. However, remember, we did have 50 points left over. I went for the Rune of Preservation to make him a bit tougher, but you might want to go for something like the Master Rune of Dragon Slaying, which would give him 2+ to wound, always wounds on a 2+, I should say, against Behemoth. That might be the way you resolve it. You consider dropping 1 Rune of Fury to have a little bit more dragon killing in there, or you just go durability, schmorbability, and you just go all in on going 3 Runes of Fury and a Master of Dragon Slaying. Point is, he's only got 1 limitation, and you've got plenty of points left over to play around with getting around that limitation. I just love the full blender route because it looked good on paper, and so far it's not encountered anything that it couldn't kill in game as well. But of course, all of this is just like my opinion, well, and I guess experience. Man, let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Do you like the idea of the Blender Lord? How would you change it and tweak it to improve it? Or if you don't like it at all, what is your favorite Dwarf Lord combo? If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to smash that like button and also subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian Glory Hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing, truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members, so thank you guys so much. And last, but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the Call of Duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bon Vert, Mad Larkin, Marcus Roberts, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.